Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Thursday, the 30th day of November, year of our Lord 2017, welcome to the John Moore Show. A prepper tip of the day. I want to encourage all of you to get yourself a supply of potassium iodide. That's iodide. There's iodate and iodide. You want iodide. What this does, it goes to your thyroid, and if you're exposed to radiation, it prevents your thyroid from absorbing the radiation. And that's a good thing, to not get radiation into your thyroid. It ends up with very severe health problems later on, including cancer. On the left side of my homepage, at thelibertyman.com, you'll find some potassium iodide for sale there, along with Geiger counter, electronic Geiger counter, which might be a good thing to get also. I was just reading this morning that the Canadian government is restocking their Cold War shelters that they had for high-level government officials in Canada, making sure that they've got the food and water and medicine and blankets and whatever else they need to have those shelters ready for government officials coming out of Ottawa. I have every reason to believe that all the shelters for the federal government are certainly being brought up to speed. It seems like they've been doing that for quite a while, but there may be extra attention being given to them. We'll have open lines this first half hour, and bottom of the hour we'll have Tom Berryhill. We'll be talking about the energy cleaner. Second hour, Don Kublai may or may not be with us. Don has been in India and Bangladesh recently. He may still be over there. I don't know. If he can join us, he will. So we'll take your questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. Earlier this morning, Vince Finelli's show had a very upsetting technical error going on. There were two shows being broadcast at the same time, and I turned it off. It was maddening, even trying to listen to it for just a few minutes. But that's Genesis Communications. We rebroadcast Vincent's show every morning here, and maybe they'll get that fixed. I hope they have by now. The war drums are beating. The war drums are beating. I know from talking to various private sources that our military, the U.S. military, is quietly ramping up, getting ready for something. I believe it's World War III myself. I heard recently from a confidential source that a class of infantry AIT, advanced infantry training graduates, they finished their graduation ceremony. It used to be, even during the Vietnam War, where we had some pretty severe manpower shortages, the graduates would get a 1-month leave before being sent overseas. Well, these graduates 2 months ago, they had 1 hour to spend with friends and family, and they immediately had to leave for their next duty station. That's highly unusual. In case you don't know, I'm here to tell you that it's highly unusual. Something very serious is being planned for. Therefore, if the military is getting ready, I think that we would all be well advised to get ready ourselves. Now, yesterday here where I live in Osage Township in Crawford County, Missouri, I was working on our emergency communications. I brought the coax into the building, attached the coax to the wall, looped it into the Radio Shack, brought up all the radio equipment, 2 transmitters, 1 CB transmitter, 1 FM transmitter, power supply for both, Faraday bags for both, Faraday box for both. Got all the connections necessary to operate this equipment. Did a quick test on the FM transmitter. I didn't test the CB equipment yet, but I will be. I got one more little piece of equipment to get for a final install. I'll be working on that today. Then we'll start our testing. Testing the FM transmitter and testing the CB transceiver. We'll go from there to install a 2-meter ham transceiver and also this probably be the same radio, a VHF transceiver to talk to the local authorities if and when the need ever arises. So we're making some progress down here, getting our emergency communications set up and protecting our emergency communications from EMP. Also here in Osage Township, we'll be distributing AM/FM hand crank radios that will be protected in Faraday bags to business owners, pastors, community leaders in the area so that we can have community leaders throughout Osage Township that can listen to the FM radio and then tell their neighbors what's going on in the neighborhood. That's our plan, and we're sticking to it. If you have a question or comment, we certainly will take your question or comment here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. Today's the last day of the month, obviously. We got 1 month left in the year. It'll be 2018 before you know it. The closer we get to Christmas, the more business slows down to the point where by Christmas Eve, most business in America comes to a screeching halt and doesn't start up again until about the 2nd or 3rd of January. That's typically what happens in this country. The most vulnerable time every year in this country is between Christmas and New Year's. Every federal, state, and local agency of every sort, whether it's military or police or otherwise, typically is staffed by the youngest, least experienced personnel. There might be a couple of experienced people around, but the majority of the people are the youngest and least experienced because they don't have the seniority to get time off. That's what happens between Christmas and New Year's every year. This is not a secret, by the way. This is pretty commonly known. It's a time of families and friends getting together, enjoying each other's company, and so forth, as well it should be. This may be the first Christmas holiday in decades that the President of the United States actually calls it Christmas as opposed to Happy Holidays. I would love to see some of these school boards get some stiffness in their spines and call the Christmas break what it is, a Christmas break, instead of the winter break, which they've been doing now for, 30, 40 years? I don't even know anymore. When I was in school, it was a Christmas holiday, a Christmas break. That's what it is. That's what it should be called. And if it offends anybody, get over it. I don't see I don't see Muslim countries being worried about offending Christians. Why should we be worried about offending Muslims? I don't get that at all. So let's go back to what works in this country. Calling the Christmas holidays what it is, the Christmas holidays. The North Korean missile launch earlier this week has got a lot of people's attention, as well it should. It is not just the North Koreans. North Korea is a client state of both Communist China and Communist Russia. You think Russia's not communist, you're living in a dreamland. Since day one, North Korea has been a client state of Communist China and Communist Russia. Nothing of any consequence happens there without the tacit approval, if not outright involvement, of the Communist Chinese as well as the Russians. That's my reality. I don't know what yours is, but that's my reality. I was reading an account from a female North Korean soldier. I think she had escaped and was able to tell her tale about the miserable conditions that the women had to endure in the North Korean army. Absolutely miserable. The government there has such a complete lockdown on access to information that the North Koreans think they're living in paradise, and they take pity on Americans. I'm serious. They actually think that Americans are living in squalor and are worse off than they are. Now, that's some pretty serious propaganda and some pretty serious containment of reality, isn't it? I think it is. They're a formidable enemy. They have either the first or second largest standing army on the planet. They're only a stone's throw. The Korea, the border, the 38th parallel, is within artillery range of Seoul, the capital of South Korea. Dave Hodges released a story this morning or yesterday coming out of Australia, giving the main targets of the North Korean military, which I pretty much agree with. I didn't find any serious disagreement with the list of targets. Not at all. Keep in mind that these missiles that the North Koreans have probably aren't all that accurate. I recall when I was in the military, the discussions that were taking place then about why the Russian missiles had such massive warheads with such huge yields. And the story was that their guidance systems were so poor, they had to have the really large yield nuclear weapons to make up the difference, because they couldn't target and get as close as with any dependability as they would like to their targets. We're going to call her and hold here. We got Rick in Missouri. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, John. Hey, I just had one quick comment. I was filtering through some information yesterday or the day before, and I came across this strange YouTube video of these two conservative guys questioning Alexa, Amazon's Alexa, this device that you can buy and you put it in your house, and you can. It's always listening to you unless you somehow disable that. But you can yell out a question and it will give you some sort of information. You can ask it to order a pizza, or you can buy stuff off Amazon.com with it, obviously. But these guys are conservatives, and they were asking Alexa some various political questions, and they asked about communism and socialism and fascism, and basically you got these Wikipedia answers, but they asked Alexa who Muhammad was, and Alexa said that Muhammad was this wonderful, kind, wise prophet that gave us many important lessons, taught us how to live, and et cetera. I mean, it was this glowing report about this guy, and then asked who Jesus was, and Alexa had a one-sentence answer: Jesus Christ is a fictional character. That was it.
No kidding.
I am not kidding. And you can find it. I just kind of looked it up, and it just says Amazon's Alexa says Jesus is a fictional character. And these guys were smart. I mean, these guys were, they were right up there with Jesse Waters. So they really have the interview goes on for 15 or 20 minutes, but it's really shocking. And so, right down to your Alexa that's watching you all the time, you see that these large industries like Google, Facebook, Amazon, these people, they're watching you, and they're trying to reprogram your brain with every device available to them. So, if anybody gets a couple of minutes, look it up. it's a kind of a lengthy thing, 15, 20 minutes, but it is a hoot.
Right. Well, that reminds me of something, and I need to make this a personal project. There's a billboard in Indianapolis, and I've got it up here on my screen in front of me. The headline at the top of the billboard is black with white letters. It says, in quotes, "The perfect man." And then it gives 6 things the perfect man did during his life. Number 1, married 6-year-old. 2, slave owner and dealer. 3, rapist. Then we got beheaded 600 Jews in one day. Next, 13 wives, 11 at one time. And last but not least, tortured and killed unbelievers.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mention Muhammad. It doesn't mention Islam. It doesn't mention Muslims. All it says is what I just stated. It's beautiful. It is, Rick, I was in psychological warfare, and this is some of the most perfect and beautiful psychological warfare I've ever seen. Because it's just so well done, so well thought out.
Well, had you can imagine what would have happened. Sure, I agree with you, and you can only imagine what would have happened had Alexa had all that reversed and said Muhammad was a fictional character. Well, they'd have put out some sort of a fatwa on a bunch of people, and they'd be chasing.
The top executives at Amazon would have fatwas against them.
Oh, they would be in mortal danger because they would keep it up until they finally caught them. So it just goes to show you that the only people on this planet that can be abused consistently and without fear is a Christian. It's funny, but I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, my brother has one of those Alexa devices. I look at it some kind of gimmick of like a party gimmick kind of thing. It's something I want to get involved with. Rick, anything else?
No, sir. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Well, appreciate the call. Thank you.
Okay.
We got a break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 30th of November. Something I've looked into, it's one of those projects that hasn't got a high priority, is having one of these companies that does artistic concrete work. You've seen you've probably driven past the businesses where they have the different pieces of artistic concrete that you can put in your yard or your garden, various birds and figures and so forth. A concrete artistic representation of the Stone Mountain Monument. I believe it's in Georgia. I would advocate doing probably two versions if I can get this project going. One would be a 4x4 foot concrete representation of the Stone Mountain Monument, and the other would be maybe 3 or 4 4x4 foot panels, which would be a larger version of the same thing, the Stone Mountain Monument. I picked 4x4 feet because that's the size of a standard shipping pallet, and something that big and that heavy you would want to ship on a pallet where a forklift could be used to gently and carefully move something that large and that heavy, which, if it was 4 inches thick, 4x4 feet, you're looking at several hundred pounds of weight there. It would be a fun project, and like I say, it hasn't been a high priority. I've got a lot of other things going on that do occupy my time. But I'm not the only person that could do this. The reason I'm saying this, if you have some discretionary time and want to take on that project yourself, hey, go for it. And maybe we can get this going. 4x4 foot artistic concrete representation of the Stone Mountain Monument. That would be great. I believe the characters on horseback, if I'm not mistaken here, is General Robert Lee, General Stonewall Jackson, and President Andrew Jackson on horseback. It's a beautiful monument, and it attracts a lot of attention, as well it should. The way history is taught in this country is upside down, inside out, and backwards. The Civil War was not about slavery. It was not about slavery. The slaves were not freed until after Abraham Lincoln died, by the way. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves in the United States. Oh, you didn't know? You didn't know there were slaves in the United States all during the Civil War? Men and women, boys and girls being bought and sold like loaves of bread or cattle in 1861, 1862, 1863, 1864, 1865. Therefore, if the Civil War was about slavery, how in the world did the President of the United States allow men and women, boys and girls, to be openly bought and sold and owned inside his country, while he's in fact making war against a different country, the Confederate States of America, over slavery? Excuse me? No, that dog don't hunt, as one of my neighbors would say. That dog don't hunt. No. Here's what you need to remember, only 4 things: Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware. The 4 states that never left the United States, that were never part of the Confederate States of America, were all during the alleged Civil War, which it was not a Civil War. Men and women, boys and girls were openly bought and sold and owned just like cattle. They were. No, you've been lied to. You've been absolutely lied to. To believe the Civil War was about slavery is to believe a fantasy. That's what it is. It's to believe a fantasy. It was about money. It was about tariffs. It was about taxes. That's what it was about. The southern states, the Confederate States of America, the southern states was the money-generating engine for the rest of the country. Lincoln did not want to give that up. That's why he invaded a free sovereign state. You always hear he preserved the Union. No, the Union was already broken. Confederate States of America was a sovereign state with defined borders, a postal service, its own monetary system, a constitution, a House of Representatives, a Congress, a president. They even had their own postage stamps. It was a free sovereign state that was invaded by another country. That's not a civil war. The last caller this half hour, Fred in Wisconsin. Good morning, Fred.
How you doing? I just have a quick question. I'm looking around a little bit, and I've had some experience in the contractor community, and I'm just seeing something flashing across the screen now about domestic deployment. I know they've got them in Puerto Rico, I'm just wondering if you know anything about it.
Well, Dave Hodge has written about that. You might want to go to his website to get the details.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, Fred. Bottom of the hour break, we'll be back with Tom Berryhill. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 30th of November. This is the half hour, the 24 minutes I look forward to every week. We take out 24 minutes to talk about a very special product called the Energy Cleaner, a marvelous healing device. We start these conversations with my friend, the manufacturer of the Energy Cleaner, Mr. Tom Berryhill, giving us our disclaimer. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, John. We're not doctors or medical professionals. We don't diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or disease. The information discussed today is for your education and entertainment only. If you have a medical condition requiring treatment, you should utilize the services of a medical doctor, chiropractor, or other competent practitioner.
All right. Tom, I got an email from an Energy Cleaner user the other day, one of our listeners, James. And James said he's been listening for 2 years, listening to us talk about the Energy Cleaner for 2 years. He finally got one. And he said within a couple of days he was getting relief. And now, of course, he regrets waiting for 2 years before he did that. And we hear these stories a lot, don't we, Tom?
I've been hearing them for many years, John. People talk about it, they think about it, they kick it around in their mind, and they just don't do anything. What really gets somebody moving is when they have a neighbor, a family member, or friend, or somebody that they know personally that has obtained an energy cleaner, and they see the results that person has obtained. That is really a motivation for somebody to get off their butt and do something, and I've heard that many times. And John, sometimes I hear from people, and they say, I don't know what that thing's called, but it's a black case with a handle on it. It was an energy machine or energy. I don't know. I just want one just like so-and-so has. I want that exact unit because I need some help. So we hear things like that quite often. Right,
we do. Well, Tom, it's been 2 weeks since we drew a card. I just reached into the envelope, and I pulled out a card here, and it's Diane down there in Mesa, Arizona, area code 480. I'll be giving Diane a call and sending her an email letting her know that her postcard was drawn in our promotion to help Republic Broadcasting with some funding that you've been sponsoring now into the second year. Well, Tom, there's something about the Energy Cleaner we haven't talked about for, I'm going to say, I'm guessing about 2+ years that Lee Kroc mentioned to you a number of times. And this is more for the ladies. Ladies, listen up, because you ladies are the ones who are more likely to take action on this. And what Lee Kroc would talk about was his libido, and how, this is a man who was over 80 years old, by the way, how he had the libido of a man much, much younger, and he was very adamant and very proud about that, wasn't he, Tom?
Well, you know, he was on Frank Whalen's show. And by the way, Frank called me yesterday, John. I'll talk to you soon about that. He does want to talk to you. But anyway, Lee Kroc was on Frank Whalen's show, and he started bragging about what it did for him, and it was just short of X-rated. I couldn't believe he even talked like that, but he did. And I'll tell you what, Lee called me the next day, and he says, boy, we moved quite a few of those energy cleaners yesterday. And I said, really? And you know what he said, John? I'll never forget it. He says, I thought a bunch of men would want that, but he said it was all women buying these things. The women were buying them for their husbands, boyfriends, and whatever. It was amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's for it. It just goes to show that men don't understand the psyche of a woman. And that's why I started out as part of our conversation mentioning the ladies, listen up, because the women understand these things. Women tend to be we have Dr. Myers on every Friday. 95% of his clientele is women. Women are more intuitive. Women are more in touch with their bodies and their emotions than men are. And when we talk about how the energy cleaner will improve a man's libido, it's the women who understand this and figure it out, and they're the ones who buy them. So I'm not surprised at all. And in fact, I understand it and expect it. So, ladies, this is your chance. If you want to improve the man in your life, you want to improve his libido, get yourself an energy cleaner. And and we've had numerous examples, Tom, where one spouse will get the energy cleaner, set it up on the bed, and not even tell the other spouse. And just wait and see what happens next. And you've seen that happen many times, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. And, John, in general, it seems to be the women that are most interested in these modes of energy healing. It really is. Not just the energy cleaner, but almost all types of healing. It's the women that really pay attention to this. And the men, I guess they're too busy watching football and drinking beer. But it does seem to be the women. And, one time I did have a fella contact me, John, and we're talking on the phone and in a roundabout. I don't think he wanted to come right out and ask, but he finally did. He says, hey, you talk about using folded up aluminum foil for a small pad and for just a general area that you want to work on. And he said, do you have to put that right on the bare skin? Can it be through the clothes? I don't know. It'll go through your clothes. He says, does it work better if it's right on the skin? I said, well, some people claim that it does, but I don't think it's that critical. And he said, he kind of hemmed and hawed around, and he finally said, would it hurt if I put one of these pads down in my underwear? And I just started laughing. I said, I don't think it'll hurt anything, but give it a try. And I never did hear back from him. But, so you got on that subject, and there's been quite a bit of conversation about that, John, over the years. And all started with Lee Kroc in that one broadcast. I wish I had an archived copy of that because it would it shocked most people.
Right,
he was quite impressed with the results.
Well, Tom, I was at a family get-together. It's been about 3 years ago. And you know how in a typical household situation, family party situation, there's maybe three groups of people, maybe one in the kitchen, another one in a dining area, another one in the living room, with people kind of casually walking about, engaging in different conversations and eating food and so forth. And I found myself at a table with, it was inadvertent, with three women, and they're between, I'm going to say, 55 and 65 years old. And I was kind of sitting there just minding my own business, eating a chocolate chip cookie and not really participating in the conversation. But since I were all at the table, I couldn't help but hear what they were saying. And they were all expressing their joy and their happiness about something called a little blue pill. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I don't want to sound stupid or ignorant and ask what the little blue pill is. But after 4 or 5 minutes, I figured out that they were talking about Viagra. And I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, because clearly, I don't need it or want it, but the men in their lives did. And the women were ecstatic that such a pharmaceutical product existed. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies especially, if you want to have the man in your life have a strong libido without harmful side effects of these pharmaceutical products, get an energy cleaner. Seriously, get yourself one. Tom, you've got a fresh batch just about ready for me, sir?
Well, yeah, John, we'll be meeting here by the weekend.
Okay. All right. I got a lot of orders waiting to be processed and get out the door.
We have quite a large batch in the works, so don't worry about that.
Okay. Well, I'm not worried about it.
It's hard to keep up this time of year. It gets kind of busy.
Well, I'm getting a lot of people shipping energy cleaners as gifts. I've noticed that, where the person buying it is not the same person receiving it. So
that is really a nice Christmas gift for somebody that you really care about. And I've had so many people tell me that over the years. Of the person that received that gift later, and usually shortly after, said, this was one of the nicest gifts I've ever received. It's really, really something. So when you can give somebody better health with a simple device like this, they are very, very, very happy about that.
Of course they are. Now, for the benefit of new listeners, we're talking about a marvelous healing device. It's listed for sale at my website at thelibertyman.com. Literally a black plastic box about the size of a cigar box. Takes 9D as in Delta, 9 D-cell batteries. It puts out a healing electrostatic signal. No, it's not a TENS unit. No, it's not a Rife frequency generator. It's entirely different technology. This electrostatic signal goes to every cell in your body, flushing out toxins, bringing in fresh nutrition. That's how it works. We focus mainly on pain mitigation. It could be joint pain, arthritis pain, back pain, and getting a great night's sleep. We probably should talk more about how it helps the libido. It just kind of slips my mind. But it helps a man's libido as well. And that's what it is. The patent application details are there at my website. Fascinating story how this thing came into being. The testimonials from men and women who've got their lives back is there at my website also. Now, 19 years ago, the energy cleaner was $3,000 each, hand-built one at a time with a very nice Amish wood cabinet. Tom Berryhill got involved and brought modern technology in terms of manufacturing this thing to get the price down 10% of what it was, less than 10% of what it was 19 years ago, $285, shipping included to American zip codes. We also offer at my website factory-made, fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Yes, you can get by with loom screen wire from the hardware store, and yes, in a few weeks to months, it will start breaking you apart and scratching you in the middle of the night. So, bite the bullet, spend the money, get everything you need right there at the get-go. Keep in mind that I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee on the energy cleaner. So you're risking nothing when you buy your energy cleaner. I do take PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. Of course, checks can be sent to my address at thelibertyman.com. And I have a toll-free order line 24 hours a day. Here it is. Don't try to call me. Order line only. 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Well, Tom, the energy cleaner is a marvelous device, and it goes in different directions, such as helping people with their gardens. The seed catalogs will start hitting people's mailboxes here pretty soon if they haven't already. And people will be sitting there in front of their fireplace when it's 10 degrees, looking at these beautiful photographs of the fruits and vegetables and ornamentals that they plan on planting in just about 3 months or so, 3 or 4 months. And the energy cleaner can help with both the seedlings and the garden itself, can't they, Tom?
Well, it sure will. And, John, I always advise people to consider sprouting, because sprouts are a very nutritious plant that, small plant sprouts, and they're very nutritious and a good way to have something to eat in emergency situations. If we ever got to where the electric grid is gone and people are just trying to scrape by and regroup, well, sprouts could be a very welcome addition to the menu. And they grow pretty fast anyway, but with the energy cleaner signal applied to those sprouts, they'll grow at least 2 times as fast. And it's so simple to do. You can take a metal shelf and put the sprouts, the trays on there near a window, and connect the energy cleaner to that metal shelf. Or you can, if you have a wooden shelf or any other support for these sprouting trays, just use aluminum foil or aluminum screen wire, anything. Just set them on this metallic surface and connect the energy cleaner cable to it, and you really increase the growth rate of those sprouts. And it
Absolutely.
works quite well. So
and get
and
ready.
Greenhouses and gardens, all of it, John. It's people that have tried it are just totally amazed as to the production rate of the vegetables.
They are, and get ready. Tim Spencer did this the first time. He had high hopes for it working, but he was totally unprepared for how fast it worked and how quickly the seedlings took off. So to be advised, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to use energy cleaner on the seedlings, don't do it too early. End up with these nice big seedlings, and it's too cold to put them in the ground. So do it just about, I would say, no more than 2 weeks before you want to put them in the ground. That'd be about right, wouldn't it, Tom?
I think so. That's about right. You do have to have, your garden area ready if it's going to turn to soil or plow or whatever you're going to do. Get it ready, and then start those seedlings. In a greenhouse, it's pretty simple, especially hydroponic. If you have a hydroponic greenhouse, the easiest way is to just stretch even a single strand of stainless steel welding wire down through the troughs that the plants are growing in. And when the nutrients flow through there, they'll get charged up with that signal and transfer it to the plant. And, of course, that media stays pretty damp, so it easily conducts that signal all the time. And that energy cleaner will really energize those plants. And we recently shipped out some units to a commercial greenhouse operation, and they fired up 2 additional greenhouses with energy cleaners. So they're having great success.
Absolutely. Well, what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is a way to get your life back. I'll be talking to Steve Whitman again soon. His next book is probably published or about to be published. I'm going to get the book and review it, and then we'll have Steve back on to talk both about his new book and how the energy cleaner saved his life 3 years ago. Literally saved his life. And then after saving his life, helped in the very rapid recovery he's had to get back to full speed in terms of strength and agility and mobility and so forth, being shot 3 times with a .45 caliber pistol that fateful day 3 years ago. It's very humbling, Tom, to know that the work you're doing is saving people's lives. The work you're doing, the work I'm doing with the energy cleaner is literally, not figuratively, but literally saving people's lives. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, back here morning on Thursday, the 30th of November, talking to Tom Berryhill. We're talking about a marvelous healing device called the Energy Cleaner. I talked to Tim Spencer briefly this morning. He needed to take the morning off to get caught up on his rest. But Tim has told his story dozens of times here, Tom, about how he went from taking prescription pharmaceutical products every day of his life for more than 30 years to getting his life back, and to the point where he could ride his ponies and climb radio towers, use a chainsaw, do all the active, energetic things that a man would like to do on a hobby farm. And we hear these stories multiple times, and Tim apologizes publicly for being an energy cleaner procrastinator for 2 weeks. 2 weeks that he could have had quicker recovery. And I talk about energy cleaner procrastinators. Your experience, Tom, has been typically about a 1 year lag time between the first time they hear about the energy cleaner and they actually make their purchase. Is that somewhat accurate, sir? Tom? Hello, Tom? Okay. Well, it looks like we lost Tom somehow. That's okay. Tom, if you can hear him, we can't hear you. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, John, I hear you fine.
Okay, you're back.
Okay. What I was going to say is you're accurate on the lag time. People wait maybe a year, sometimes longer. But again, they'll jump right on it if they see what it's done for somebody that they know personally. And then they want one immediately. So that's happened numerous times, countless times over the years. We've been producing these for about 18 years now. And something else we should discuss, John, you mentioned people on different medicines, if people are taking supplements. This energy cleaner technology will greatly assist with your body's use of those different products. If you in some cases, you can cut back on the dosage because it will make your body much more efficiently put those products to use. So it allows the cells to pull in the nutrients and expel the toxic waste material in a very efficient manner. So it's for that alone, it's I think well worth the price.
Absolutely. So you go to my website, check out the energy cleaner, check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads, and please, don't procrastinate. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee. I personally stand behind that. There's about 2 or 3 a year that get returned, and I refund their money the same day. It's not a big deal. You've got nothing to lose and a lot to gain. Don't they, Tom?
They sure do, John. Been doing this a long time, and as you like to mention quite often, the number of people that have bought multiple energy cleaners. They get their first one, and then they get another and another and another. They wouldn't do that if it wasn't doing something good for them.
Obviously not. Tom, we're just about out of time here. I want to thank you for being with us as always, and we'll talk privately soon, sir.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Top of the hour break. We'll be back. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, our second hour on Thursday, the 30th of November. The prepper tip of the day. I think it would be advisable to get yourself and people you care about a supply of potassium iodide. That's iodide, I-O-D-I-D-E. This is a substance that, when you consume it, it's absorbed by your thyroid. Why is that important? Well, as long as there's no undue amounts of nuclear radiation coming into this country, it's not an issue. But if there was nuclear radiation in the atmosphere surrounding us, it would be really good to have the potassium iodide in your system, in your thyroid, so that your thyroid cannot absorb the radiation, which is what it will do. If you want to purchase some, there's some for sale on my website. at thelibertyman.com. Scroll down the left side of my homepage, and you'll find it there along with a Geiger counter. And so check that out and make your decision, and go ahead and make your purchase. We're going to have open lines the second hour. Don Kubley with Inter-Shelter Domes is over in South Asia, in Bangladesh and India, what they call the Indian subcontinent, I believe, helping those people out with the Inter-Shelter Domes. I'm looking forward to getting the next new product in his product line on my website. The ones that are not dome-shaped, but more of a Quonset type shape. Then they can be made 100 feet long, which would be an awful lot of square feet, with either a round end, just like a dome has, or a square end. So you can put a door, a garage door, windows, whatever, on the square end, or ends, plural. I'm really looking forward to it, because it opens up a lot more possibilities with that shape and the ability to configure these things in different manners. All right. About 1988 or so, I was active in Second Amendment politics around Metro St. Louis, a group called the Second Amendment Coalition. I was on the board of directors there for a while. And I took it upon myself to buy a stack of civil defense and FEMA publications for our board members. And there was it was a good-sized board. I got about 10 or 12 cartons from civil defense, which had already become FEMA, by the way. Now, in 1988, they still had large inventories of the Cold War publications to deal with World War III. And I got copies of all those. Most of those are no longer available from the government anyway, the government printing office. And I went through these publications one by one. And something I noticed that was evident in each of these publications, the different publications telling you how to build a shelter to be safe from the radiation, stock the shelter with food and medical supplies and sanitation products and so forth. Not a single one, and it was not. And I looked, and I got copies of all these publications. Not a single publication gave any instruction or advice of any kind on what to do when they come out of the shelter. It simply did not exist. It didn't. And it would seem like that would be part of the protocols, doesn't it? What do you do when the war is over and the radiation has dropped to safe enough levels that you can come outside the shelter? What do you do? Nothing. Zippo, nada, nothing was there. Something was also consistent with all these publications. Not a single one advocated that you have a means of self-defense. None of them advocated that either, which didn't surprise me. That was my expectation. And I don't believe, and I haven't checked these publications for several years, I have to admit, I doubt that any of the current publications they offer make any suggestions or advice or coaching on what to do when you come out of the shelters now. In fact, I'm not sure how many publications there even are dealing with the possibility of World War III and nuclear attack. There probably are some. I don't know how many they are or how detailed they are, but my belief, without even looking at these, is all these years later, not quite 30 years later, they still don't offer any advice on what to do when the radiation levels have dropped to safe levels and you come out of the shelter. What are you supposed to do? Go to work the next morning and stop by the supermarket and pick up a couple of steaks and a 6-pack of beer on the way home? And once the radiation levels have dropped to a safe level? I'm being a bit flippant here, I know. It's a pretty sad comment on the whole alleged area of preparedness by the federal government. I say alleged because it's a pretty gross error to not address the aftermath of the attack, in my opinion. Of course, it's a gross mistake and a gross error and I wouldn't call it oversight. I think it's done by design. Because people would find it too scary to understand that the world that they lived in no longer exists and would never ever exist again in the same manner. People would find that too scary, too politically incorrect, so we don't do it. Don't go there. Don't even talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist, right? What's it called? The head in the sand syndrome? I believe. I also believe that people would be well advised to consider the possibility of nuclear attack on this country. I've talked a lot about EMP, but not so much about traditional nuclear weapons being discharged in this country. If it was the North Koreans or China or Russia, they would most likely target high priority targets involving the U.S. military, U.S. government. That would be the most likely scenario. But all bets are off. Once the first nuke goes off, all bets are off as to when and where nuclear devices will be discharged. There have been persistent rumors for decades about communist-owned and controlled nuclear weapons already being in this country. The typical number I hear is in the high teens, 18 or 19 or so, hidden in various locations around the United States. I've never seen any evidence of it. I've heard the rumors, like many of you have. Hopefully they're not here, but if semi-illiterate drug dealers can bring in cocaine and heroin literally by the ton every day of the week, why could not educated operatives with vast resources bring in nuclear devices? Of course they could. That's a given. Of course they could. And they could afford to have the proper shielding so there'd be no detection of those devices. Of course they could. Are they here? I don't know. I regard nuclear weapons going off on our soil as not as imminent as EMP for a number of reasons, but certainly on the in the playbook as a possibility of what would happen, which is why I went ahead and updated my family's supply of potassium iodide this morning at the beginning of the show. I thought I better make sure we got some current bottles of potassium iodide. And I went ahead and placed my order through Amazon this morning. Not a pretty picture. Not a pretty picture. I recall reading about how in 1912, 1914 era, when World War I started, Europeans at the time thought we're so modern, we're so educated, we're so advanced that we can't possibly have any more brutal, barbaric wars in Europe because of our advanced culture, our advanced civilization. We have electricity and flush toilets and automobiles. We're too modern to have another barbaric war like they'd had the previous century, multiple times. That turned out to be not quite so right, did it? Absolutely brutal, barbaric war, the World War I. No doubt about it. And the same thing could certainly happen now. I've been a student of the understanding the communist conspiracy for decades. I recall I was a boy in junior high school. My mother went to a presentation at the Baptist Church one evening. It was probably Wednesday evening. An audio tape was played from a person who had survived and escaped communism in Europe about what really goes on under communism in Europe at the time. And I was a young man, and it made a very deep and impression on me. as to the brutality of communism, the absolute naked, raw brutality of communism. I've always remembered that. The goals of the international communist conspiracy have never changed. They have not changed for a century. They remain the same, and that is to dominate the world politically, economically, militarily. That is their goal, and they fully intend to do it. Now, they've developed an alliance with the Muslims that suits their needs for the time being. I believe they just plan on using the Muslims to achieve their goals, and then the Muslims will be done away with. That's what I believe will happen. There is a very strong alliance between Russia and China. They basically have decided to split the world between the two of them, is what I believe they have already done, is decide who's going to get what. It's basically a way to consolidate the wealth of the world in the hands of a very few. The leaders of communism, they no more believe Karl Marx than they just simply don't. I understand the words of Karl Marx and communism is a way for them to gain power and control and authority, personal wealth. Vladimir Putin, I believe, is a billionaire, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, he's a communist. You don't get to be in a position he's in without being a communist. A communist that believes in communism for everybody else and wealth for himself. I've been told that there's about 20 families in communist China that could pay off the U.S. national debt if they chose to. That's some serious wealth. We always hear about the Rothschilds and their wealth, which is wealth beyond belief on one hand. On the other, well, the Rothschilds are not alone. There's tremendously wealthy people in China and in Russia and Ukraine and many places like that. Tremendous wealth. But communism is not dead. We're seeing the efforts of communists in this country every day of the week in the form of Democrats, socialists, liberals. We see it every day of the week with them attempting to change the foundation of our culture, the foundation of our country. And I have to admit they're having tremendous success. I recall when I was just getting involved in the legal profession, no-fault divorce was coming in around 1972, 73, along in there. That changed everything. When you no longer needed a reason to get divorced, the divorce numbers just skyrocketed overnight. Absolutely skyrocketed overnight. Most of the men in prisons, most of the time, grew up in a home without a father. That's a demonstrable fact. Doesn't matter, white or black. Most of the men and women in prison grew up in a home that did not have a father in it. They're achieving their goal incrementally, little by little, bit by bit, of changing our culture, changing our society. They want us to become a democracy. There's little difference between democracy and communism, by the way. The founding fathers were very, very adamant about not wanting the United States of America to become a democracy. They did everything they could with the Constitution they wrote and agreed upon to not have our country become a democracy. But that's the direction we're headed. And most people, most of the time, think democracy is a good thing. They don't understand. They're living in a fantasy of what they think democracy would be, as opposed to the reality of what democracy really is. It's something that we can't stop, something we can only work on locally. You know, you might want to be sure that when elections come up that you support a Constitution-believing sheriff to your county, school board members who believe in God and our Constitution. That's very important. All elected officials who believe in God and our Constitution are very important at every level. Whether it's a city position, a county position, state, or federal. Once I get beyond the state level It's hard to control what goes on. It really is. But we do what we can, don't we? To elect men and women who will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Last time I renewed my notary commission, I didn't have to take the oath again. And that's the first time in, well, more than 40 years. I've been a notary public for more than 40 years. First time I did not have to take the oath of office. And something changed at the state, at the legislative level, to bring that about. It's a bit disappointing, actually. It's not that I look forward to it, but it's a tradition. And I believe all office holders, and a notary public is an office holder representing the state as an agent of the state to notarize official documents. I believe they should continue taking that oath of office. That's my belief, but that's the way it is. Here's our break. The call number is 800-313-9443. Gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 30th of November. We have some good news. It's always nice to have good news. Apparently, the Bundys up there in Nevada have been or soon will be released pending trial. That's really good news. Dave Hodges has done an excellent job of reporting this. Apparently, there's a lot more to the story than just the Bundys and what went on at their ranch up there a couple of years ago. It also has to do with FBI agents and Hillary Clinton, Department of Justice, of course. It really is good news. Cliven Bundy, the father, the patriarch, he has said he will not leave jail until all the prisoners are released. He's willing to stay there as long as it takes to make sure that all the prisoners are released from this debacle that went on up there involving the federal government and property rights. So that's very good. And according to Hodges, what comes next is going to be devastating, involving Hillary Clinton and others. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Okay. Got a question or comment, give us a call at 800-313-9443. Year's wrapping up. I was encouraging people the other day to put together their training for our calendar year 2018. Training for your group, your family, your group, your church, whatever your group consists of. Once a month would be what most people would pick. Probably a weekend is what most people would pick. And, Saturday morning training is what we do here in Osage Township and in Viburnum, Missouri. First aid, CPR. Our next training class is ammunition reloading. That'll take place Saturday the 16th. We got a ham radio class coming up in a couple of months. It'll be also the inauguration of a new ham radio club for our area. There's not one anywhere nearby here, so we're going to start our own. And I'll be looking to recruit one or two of the hams to be in charge of that. I've got enough to do without taking on another responsibility. But that'll be a fun project also, to get a ham radio club going in our area and get people up to speed on communications. I was talking to our sheriff last week, and he understands, like most people involved in any first responders, that communications are absolutely critical to everything else. As another friend of mine said, he says, John, without comms, you've got nothing. And that's true. Without comms, you've got nothing. Communications. You need the radios, the power supplies. You need the knowledge to operate this equipment properly. It's not like using a cell phone. Small children can use a cell phone with no problem. But this radio equipment is a bit more complex than a cell phone. There are things you really do need to learn and understand before you can operate efficiently with ham radio equipment, or any radio equipment as far as that goes. It's difficult to get people to take the time, make the effort to get their ham radio licensed. Typically, in most groups, it's 10% or less will do it. My group here of investors we work with, almost all the adults got their ham radio license, and that's highly, highly unusual, in case you don't know. I'm here to tell you. They made the testing a lot easier. There's no more Morse code requirements at any level, including the highest level. So it should be a sense of relief for you that you don't need to learn Morse code anymore. Although it's a valuable skill to have, you no longer need it to get your license. When you study for the test, you have access to all the questions and all the answers. That's pretty neat, isn't it? The kind of thing you wished you'd had in high school, having all the questions and all the answers. Now, there's a caveat there. There's a pool of questions. They don't test the whole. They give you the whole pool. They give you just a portion, typically 1 out of 400, something like that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But it's good to know that your study guides will give you all the questions and all the answers to take these tests. I'll be talking to a man here before noon. He sat down and took every ham radio test in one evening and passed all of them the first time. Brilliant gentleman. He's a commercial contractor, takes care of first responders radios in our area, and he's a ham radio operator, of course, himself. So I'll be talking to him about a piece of equipment I need for the project we're doing here in Osage Township. I want to encourage all of you to do what you can to get ready. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with, and, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. And we are back. Yes, we are back. Okay. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. These past 11 months, you listeners have been finding images of continents with new coastlines. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is such a fun project. They've been hiding these things in plain sight now for more than 6 decades, going back to the late 1950s. Images of continents with new coastlines on movies and TV shows. And I couldn't do this by myself. One human being could not possibly do this. I need your help. If you watch movies, if you watch television shows, doesn't matter whether it's 60 years old or 6 days old, keep a sharp eye out. Because we're finding these images at both ends of the spectrum. Keep a sharp eye out for images of continents with new coastlines on these movies and TV shows. If you find one, get the screen capture, get it to me. As a thank you, you get your choice of any of my 5 DVDs. It's a fun project, and the list just keeps growing. You can see all the images we found there at my website at thelibertyman.com. Just scroll down the left side, and it's a long list and growing. Typically we get one every week or two. One new one every week or two. Sometimes we get 2 in 1 week, and sometimes we go 3 weeks without getting one. And of course, also my website, you'll find energy cleaners. This is my home business. You heard Tom and I talking about them last hour, addressing the ladies. Ladies, if you want your men in your life to have a stronger libido, get an energy cleaner. Bottom line, get an energy cleaner. Only $285 shipping included. This is my home business. My friend Tom Bearhill is a manufacturer. I pick them up from him when he makes a fresh batch. Orders come in, I pack them up here in Davisville, take them to the Cherryville post office, a little country store. It's a real deal. They're a little country store where they have all-you-can-eat catfish buffet, less than $10 on Friday evenings. When you make your purchase of a mattress pad, same thing. I'm the guy that reconfigures them. I pack them up. I take them to the post office. If you have issues with pain, arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, the energy cleaner will probably help. Not getting a great night's sleep, it will help there also. The man in your life need a stronger libido. Yep, it's going to help. Only $285 shipping included. I do take PayPal, the most secure way to make any payment online. And by the way, if you need to make payments, PayPal, if you live in the USA, PayPal now takes payments. You can spread that dollar amount out over several months. I have a toll-free order line also. That's 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Okay, back to the more serious stuff, preparedness. Nothing you and I can do about what North Korea may or may not do, what ISIS may or may not do to stop them. What we can do is prepare to deal with it, whether it's ISIS coming into our local church to murder people, or dealing with the after effects of electromagnetic pulse attack, which would be absolutely horrendous. 9 out of 10 Americans being dead the first year. But we can make plans to mitigate those things and survive them. Of course we can. When it comes to Muslims wanting to attack Christians in our churches, talk to your pastor about establishing a church security team. church I go to, we're working on that ourselves. When it comes to these other events, well, you need, quite frankly, to be part of a hobby farm. That's what I advocate. I'm not saying it would be easy. I'm saying it needs to happen. Somehow, some way, become part of a hobby farm. A hobby farm, in my definition, being a place where the products that are grown there are meant for consumption by the people that live there primarily, not so much as a business. Self-sustaining with its own source of water, for example. 100 or more miles away from a major population center at a good altitude, 800 feet, 850, because there's other things to be concerned about, such as the earth changes. That's what these maps have to do with. It's called predictive programming. Right in our face. Right in our face for decades, many decades. It looks like 1957 when these things really took off. We got one image I think goes back to 1952, if I remember correctly. But by 1957, we found, I think, 3 or 4 films at this point in time and TV shows. They have these images in them from that same year, 1957. And as recently as the last few weeks and a couple of months, images of continents with new coastlines, what I call the Navy map, the real Navy map. Now, somebody about 5 years ago took the map created by Michael Gordon Scallion, a fairly well-known psychic, and posted his map on the internet as being the Navy map. It's not the Navy map. It's Gordon Michael Scallion's map, which in fact is the same map that I used initially to work with 3 different veterans to recreate the real Navy map, which is on my DVD, Global Warming, What the Government Isn't Telling You. It's on there. It's also a free download at my website. The article I wrote, No Need for Panic, which still has quite a bit of value to it, quite frankly. I'd encourage people to read that article. There's a lot at my website, at thelibertyman.com. There's a lot there. You can spend a lot of time there. Christmas gift giving coming up. We need to do some updates under John's survival and tactical gear, but most of those links to Amazon still work. I got my first inquiry just the other day on the Thermaltac suit. This is a special article of clothing, outer garment that shields you, protects you from infrared imaging, so people won't be able to find you by your heat signature. That could be a matter of life or death, couldn't it? Absolutely. Of course, the way us hillbillies would do it would be to get space blankets. That's what the Taliban's been doing for decades, is using space blankets to conceal themselves against the high-tech American imaging devices. Simple, inexpensive, and it works. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it? Simple, ineffective, and it works. Preparedness can and should be a lifestyle. Part of a normal, healthy lifestyle, not something that just takes up all your discretionary time, just a portion of it. It can get to be a habit where you might start out just buying an extra bag of beans, an extra bag of rice when you're in the supermarket. That's pretty harmless when it comes to time and money. $3 or $4 maybe for a small bag of beans, a small bag of rice, and go from there to where you start buying larger amounts and making sure it's all packed properly so the insects and mice and so forth, rodents, can't get to it. That remains fresh and wholesome, ready to be consumed. Which reminds me, the brown rice doesn't store very well. The oils in the brown rice make it go rancid in less than a year. I know that it has more nutrition than the white rice, but it doesn't last very long, unfortunately. That's the nature of brown rice. But the combination of rice and beans, properly prepared, will provide almost all the nutrition you need. Not quite. Not quite. It's lacking vitamin C, for one thing. But it's something you can live on. Keep in mind you're going to need a source of vitamin C somehow, some way. a source of vitamin C. You're living in an apartment in a city, it's an issue. I've occupied apartments, tight spaces, not much storage space. One place I had was a 3-story walk-up. That's not too much of a burden if you're young and strong. It gets to be a burden once you get a little bit older and dealing with those steps, especially if you're carrying anything. But not too much of a burden. You got a house, generally you're going to have more storage space. Water is an issue. The best way I found to store water was 55-gallon drums, specifically designed for storage of drinking water. Nice, clean, fresh drums, specifically designed for that purpose. Now, 55 gallons of water is a lot of weight, to say the least. So you be sure you get those where you want them before you start filling them up. Now, a barrel dolly will move it, but a barrel dolly is an expensive, heavy piece of equipment in and of itself. But they will move the water. Just a regular hand truck will move those barrels of water also, assuming they're rated to handle that kind of weight. That would be an issue real quick. Two-wheel dolly braking when you're moving that much weight could really be a mess, to say the least. Don't forget the training. Training is not optional, in my opinion. 2 skills, whether your group is 6 people or 600, 2 skills in the biggest demand, shortest supply would be the following 2 skills: emergency medical treatment skills and ham radio skills. You want to be valuable to yourself, valuable to your family, valuable to your community. Work on getting those skills. First aid skills, and of course CPR is part of it, and ham radio skills. You make yourself valuable to yourself, your family, and your community. Whether your community is 6 people or 600, you become a more valuable asset to that community with those skills. Keeping in mind, you need the equipment to go with it. Being a ham radio operator without ham radio equipment is pretty futile, isn't it? If you're qualified as a first responder for first aid, well, you should have all the things necessary to make that happen, shouldn't you? Not optional, in my opinion. We, on our training schedule here in Osage County, we've put the first aid made a high priority, and it's the only class we do twice a year. All the rest of them we do once a year. CPR is not far behind it. First aid and CPR get a real high priority for obvious reasons. It's one thing that you can't just wing it and without having the possibility of serious injury or death, trying to do things you're not qualified to do, use equipment you're not qualified to use, and so forth. That could have a very tragic outcome, and I certainly don't encourage it. I encourage people to get their first aid training, get their CPR certificate, and then you're good to go, aren't you? Being a person with those skills will help instill confidence. It's good to start them young. My daughter took a Red Cross first aid class with me when she was 12. I told her at the time, I said, honey, you're going to be competing with other young ladies for these babysitting jobs. If you have the Red Cross first aid certificate, guess who's going to get the call first? You are. And that turned out to be the case because most young women, 12 years old, don't have a Red Cross first aid training certificate. And it was a fun class. She just thought it was great to be practicing bandaging up her father. And of course, I was very pleased for her to do that. And when it came to the written test, my 12-year-old daughter outperformed 3 or 4 of the adults in there, getting a higher score. I was very happy with that as well. Now, where can you get first aid training? Well, you might want to check the local fire department, maybe the local paramedics if you have an ambulance service. Some states do, some states don't. You can find out by talking to a few people where to get the first aid training. So fire departments put it on, hospitals put it on, community colleges put on first aid training. Of course, the Red Cross does. Lots of places to get your first aid training. And you need to keep it current. I've noticed the recommendations on tourniquets have changed around tremendously. It was only a few years ago there was no recommendation to use tourniquets at all, except in the case of spontaneous amputation, where you have no choice, obviously, and the person's going to bleed out with spontaneous amputation. So get that training and get the equipment. Get a first aid kit with everything you could possibly need. If there's items in there you're not qualified to use, you might want to consider taking them out, because you could cause more harm than good, attempting to use first aid equipment you're not qualified to use. Better yet, if you get a piece of equipment you're not qualified to use, well, get qualified. Get qualified. Get the training so you can use everything in the kit. These large, expensive kits have hundreds of items in them, the ones that paramedics use. They can be pretty sophisticated and very complete, and they're somewhat expensive. Somewhat, but compared to what? That's what I always ask. Compared to what? How is it expensive? And then people look at you with this deer in the headlight look. It's going to take some money. Yeah, of course it will. Some things just cost some bucks. There's no doubt about it. But do it anyway. Make it a priority. Got a break coming up pretty soon. If you need extra income, you might want to look at opening an eBay seller's account and selling your dust collectors. It can be fun. It really can. Seriously, it can be fun to sell dust collectors on eBay and get some extra income. And you can do what you need to do to have that extra income. Maybe get rid of cable TV. You don't need that expense. Put up an antenna. Cut back on other discretionary items, whether it's a tobacco habit, alcohol habit, whatever it is. Discretionary spending can be cut back to free up money for more serious things like food, medical supplies, ammunition, and so forth. There's ways to do these things. I'm not saying it'd be easy. People will go without paying their rent before they give up paying their cable TV. I know that. I was a landlord. I'd walk into a house I was renting to a family, and they'd be making some excuse about why they couldn't pay the rent on time. While the cable TV was going, there was a carton of cigarettes and a six-pack of beer in their fridge. No, those things got cut back, did they? But they were too late they couldn't pay the rent on time. As my friend Command Sergeant Major Page says, John, Americans have great difficulty telling the difference between wants and needs. I reflected on that moment, and I absolutely agreed with him. Americans do have difficulty telling the difference between wants and needs. Cable TV, tobacco consumption, alcohol consumption, those are all wants. They are not needs, but they're treated like they are needs because they receive a higher priority than things like proper dental care, proper nutrition, getting the things you need for preparedness and so forth. That tells me everything I need to know. I don't know about you, but that tells me what I need to know. Looks like we just zipped right past that last break there. I was expecting it to come up, but sometimes the equipment doesn't work the way it's supposed to. That's okay. That's okay. Well, tomorrow's the first day of December, last month of the year. Christmas coming up in 25 days. A time to be with friends and family. A time to reflect on the year past. A time to reflect on the year ahead of us. We'll have all these TV shows talking about the celebrities and well-known people who passed this past 12 months. They do that every year. People make New Year's resolutions which typically don't last more than a few weeks. But you do need to make plans. These are not resolutions. These are plans. A training schedule that's ink on paper marked on everybody's calendar that's in your group so that you can get the training that you need to get. Looks like we're having some issues with Republic Broadcasting's equipment here as we zip up towards the top of the hour. That's okay. We will deal with it. Not a big deal. I don't know if people can call in or not, if anybody's even attempting to, with other technical issues that are going on here at Republic Broadcasting. Republic Broadcasting can certainly use donations. That's one of the whole program we got here for these energy cleaner promotion. When your postcard is drawn, you get to buy an energy cleaner $250, $215 instead of $285, and $200 of that $215 goes to Republic Broadcasting. That's a pretty neat thing there that Tom has worked out, and we're into the second year now. The card I drew a few minutes ago, last hour, was Diane down there in Mesa, Arizona, area code 408. Diane, I will be contacting you, my dear, and letting you know you can now buy an energy cleaner for $215 and a mattress pad 10% off. And we'll see what Diane wants to do once I get a hold of her when the show's over. Weekend coming up. Got some discretionary time. Take time to do some training. Maybe it's just a walk in the park, a nice brisk walk, maybe a mile or so. Make sure you got good walking shoes that if you're in a public domain, I always suggest people be armed. You never know where crime is going to hit. Those people in that church in Texas a few weeks ago, they had no idea that they were going to die that morning. They thought they were going to their hometown church for a church service, which they did, and many of them ended up dead and seriously injured. They had no idea. This is a town of 450 people in the country. The town where I attend church is 600, just over 600 people, less than 700 people, by Burnham, Missouri. So I know about small towns. I've lived in cities most of my life, but I've been out here continuously for 13 years, and of course I've visited many small towns over the decades. It's a whole different environment. Literally, everybody knows everybody. Almost all of them went to the same high school together. They attend the same activities together, and so forth. So, being out in the public domain these days, I believe, means being armed. That's my opinion, based on the knowledge and experience that I have and what I'm seeing that's going on out there. If that's a hurdle for you, a psychological hurdle, well, get over it, whatever it takes for you. If it's a psychological hurdle, pray about it, think about it, go ahead and make your decision, and hopefully that decision would be to be armed and get the proper training. Don't just think that you can slip a gun in your pocket and walk out the door without getting proper training. That could lead to massive problems, life-threatening problems, by the way. So do that. Get your training. Get your concealed carry permit. The nationwide reciprocity for concealed carry is apparently doing quite well in Congress. Thank you very much. And I would like to see that passed. We've had so many people that had their lives turned upside down because of these convoluted gun laws, where you, in one state, you're perfectly legal and a good citizen. You cross the state line and you're instantly a criminal who's being arrested, has to post bond, hire an attorney, and is facing felony charges for something that, before they cross that bridge into the other state, was perfectly legal activity. That's wrong. That's wrong on the face of it. It needs to change. It really does need to change. I advocate joining the Gun Owners of America when it comes to firearms rights, much more so than the NRA. I'm a life member of the NRA on one hand. On the other, the Gun Owners of America does a far better job, in my opinion, than the National Rifle Association does. Now, when it comes to training, the NRA is top of the heap. I am an NRA certified firearms instructor with 4 different certificates from these folks. And guess who guess who teaches the police? They're NRA certified law enforcement instructors. The NRA came out of, was developed by men who had been in the Civil War, and not long, I think it was maybe 10 or 15 years after the Civil War. They already knew at that time that marksmanship skills were very dismal for the young men being drafted into the Union Army during the Civil War, and they wanted to put together a group that would address that. That's it for the day. Get your medical supplies, your energy cleaner, your essential oils now while you can, your firearms ammunition, every group of your guns. Please do have a fun, safe, productive day, and God bless America.